Vortex from 4 different sides. Naruto was rotating his water vortex at such a high speed that the sand that crashed into it was dispersed almost instantly upon contact, becoming wet and heavy. Kagebox, it is very surprising to see that he has a water affinity as well. One strong enough to draw water from thin air. Wasn't the Nidaime known for the same feat? Orochimaru asked in genuine surprise. Not every day he met ninja, let alone a genin, who could perform feat like some of the Kage. Hiruzen nodded, a relieved smile appearing on his face. He did have a plan after all, he mused. The crowd was cheering Naruto on. They thought that Naruto would escape using the Hiraishin, or worse, get crushed. But then, a tornado of water came into existence around him from seemingly nowhere. It protected Naruto from the sand perfectly. The Jonin were once again wide-eyed, including Kakashi. Kurenai shook her head. He drew water from the air around him. Most water users can't do even half of what he just did. Guy and Lee were shouting. Such youthfulness! Kakashi pointed out to his peers and the genin, whose eyes were wide with wonder at the display of power. Not just that, but that jutsu acted both as a defense and an offense in Naruto's favor. Sand becomes heavy when hit with water. So by hitting Gaara's sand with water, Naruto negated the sheer control Gaara had on his sand, ensuring his safety simultaneously. No doubt, Gaara would find wet sand increasingly difficult to control. As Kakashi explained Naruto's move, Sasuke found himself getting increasingly frustrated. Why was Naruto so powerful in comparison to him? Was he hiding this much all alone? He had to painfully admit, Naruto had dealt with Gaara much more efficiently than he would have. He had nothing but taijutsu, speed, and the jutsu Kakashi had taught him to deal with Gaara, which really wasn't much compared to what Naruto had. His fire was useless unless it was hot enough to turn sand into glass, which it wasn't. He couldn't even copy Naruto's jutsu, for fuck's sake. In addition to the absence of a water affinity, he needed to see all the hand signs to copy a jutsu. Naruto obviously had a very high water affinity to use a jutsu like that too in the absence of water and with only 2 hand seals. He knew Naruto had a large amount of chakra, but this was just ridiculous. He was still not looking winded. He clenched his fists so tight that blood seeped out. The cursed seal throbbed on his shoulder, but he forcefully pushed its influence back. I will make your power my own, Naruto. Just you wait. Arena Naruto maintained the vortex for about 5 seconds, after which the sand stopped coming. Dispersing the vortex outwards with a flourish, he smirked at the results. All the sand that he had been attacked by was now wet, saturated with water and heavy. It won't be as fast as before. Gaara watched in alarm as his sand collided into a water vortex that seemingly came out of nowhere. He realized too late, even with Mother shouting in his head, what Naruto had planned, but it was too late. Almost all the sand was wet now, and only a tiny amount was available to him, the only amount he was able to pull back before it was too late. He rotated it in the form of a ring around him to prevent it from getting any more wet. Naruto didn't waste time admiring the effects of his jutsu. Forming the bird seal, he took a deep breath and let go. Suetun, Mizurappa. A jet of water was expelled from his mouth, heading towards Gaara with great force. Gaara looked stunned as the sand automatically formed as a barrier in front of him, taking the brunt of the water. Gaara hadn't felt this helpless in a long time. Uzumaki had a counter for his sand, which was a major part of how he fought. He could make his own sand, but that took him some time, which he didn't have. He would have to do it nonetheless. He molded a huge amount of his own chakra, sand particles slowly forming in front of him. He couldn't help but let his excitement grow a little. It was hard to remember just when he had let loose like this the last time. Naruto smirked as the last of the sand fell in front of Gaara, wet and unusable. He had taken into account that a sand user such as Gaara would be able to form his own sand even if he negated it, which was exactly what Gaara was trying to do now. Oh no, you don't. Snake Dragon Ram. The kunai finally would come into play. Gaara's choice of standing in one place would cost him dearly. Kagebox, very clever of him to have negated Gaara's sand, Hokage Dano. I can't help but feel that Naruto-kun is well above the level of a chunin, don't you think? Hiruzen smiled in pride as Naruto used the element of water to completely turn the tables on Gaara. He couldn't help but be reminded of Tobirama-sensei. He was pretty much the same. His mastery of water was so unrivaled that he used to turn the battle in his favor in a place where there was no water. Considering that Naruto now had a Jinchuriki on the ropes without resorting to his own Bijou chakra, he was starting to feel the same. Naruto was well above the level of a chunin. He doubted any jonin could have turned the tides like Naruto did. Stan's holy shit. Did you see that? Ino shrieked, pointing at Naruto as if she couldn't believe it. Shikamaru slowly nodded, still trying to make sense of how Naruto did what he just did. He took away Gaara's greatest advantage. Sakura was smiling with happiness. At first she had doubted Naruto could beat Gaara, but Naruto had shown that he could find a way around the impossible. Arena Gaara was still concentrating on forming his sand when a light green shield rose up around him. He whipped his head from side to side, trying to figure out how it came into existence without him noticing. Then he felt it. He knew he was draining his chakra forming his sand, but the chakra drain was much larger than he usually felt. He then noticed the light green barrier was slowly turning into a darker shade. He looked down to his feet, noticing that he was standing in the center of a complex ceiling array shaped like a pentagon. His eyes widened in realization. This was a chakra-absorbing barrier. Naruto was smirking as he held up the ram seal. Uzumaki Fuinjutsu, Kisei Shohiki was a success. This pentagonal barrier was designed by the Uzumaki clan to suck the chakra right out of their enemies. The best thing about this barrier was that the users only need to spend an initial amount of chakra to simply build the barrier, not maintain. The barrier maintained itself and grew stronger by sucking the chakra of the people trapped inside. This barrier was designed to be used by 5 people. But Naruto's dad had written in his notes that he was able to use this barrier all by himself with the help of his special kunai. The formula on the kunai acted as a sort of dimensional rift. Instead of sending himself through that rift, Minato sent his chakra to all the 5 points, thus successfully setting up the barrier. For Naruto, this was no problem at all. His chakra control was excellent and on a level that he could split his chakra and send it in different direction, through a dimensional slipstream, without any problem. And he had more than enough chakra to spare. Gaara tried to use whatever sand he had built up, which was only a small amount, to break the barrier. Naruto called out, "It's fruitless, Gaara. This barrier will take more than just physical attacks to break." Kage box incredible imply incredible, Orochimaru breathed out in amazement. To be able to use Fuinjutsu like this, in conjunction to the Hiraishin, it was a testament to Naruto's genius and the incredible amount of power and skill that he had. Hiruzen was in the same state of awe, though he was able to keep it to himself. Minato was the only one who was capable of using barriers like this. For Naruto to replicate this feat, it spoke volumes of his mastery of the art. "You have a true gem in your forces, Hokage Dano," Orochimaru complimented. Though he was silently lamenting why he could not mark Naruto. Putting his curse seal on a Jinchuriki was something that even he didn't want to test. Hiruzen smiled in pride, "That I do, Kazekage Dano." The audience was in awe of the power and skill displayed by the last Namakes. As soon as he had trapped Gaara inside, they had erupted into cheers that could be heard throughout the entire village. Asuma stuttered out, "What power?" He had only ever seen barriers of this magnitude used by a single person, and that was the yondaime. Kurenai simply gaped at the skill being displayed. Guy was shouting something about youthfulness again, so only Lee was listening to him. Everyone had tuned out both of them. Kakashi gazed in utter pride as he watched Naruto corner Gaara and trap him inside his barrier. "Sensei, you would be proud of who Naruto has become," he whispered. He looked over to see the genin reactions. Sakura and Ino were cheering loudly, while Shikamaru and Shoji were leaning forward with smiles, Shoji's more vibrant than that of Shikamaru's, interested in seeing what Naruto would do next. He smiled at seeing their reactions. "Naruto, you managed to make your comrades believe in you. Earlier, they may not have found you to be trustworthy, however today, you managed to convince them that they can trust you with their lives, Kakashi thought, pride inside him growing by the second. He glanced to the side, and found himself disappointed. He wondered, not for the first time since arriving to the stadium, whether or not he had made the right choice in choosing to ditch Naruto and train Sasuke for the finals. He was beginning to think he may have been wrong after all. Sasuke had clenched his jaw, his fists, and was watching Naruto dispatch Gaara with efficiency he knew he didn't have. Naruto's way had been very professional. First, find the weakness. Second, exploit the weakness and take away the strengths. Finally, finish him off. He didn't even have words to express just how furious he was, both with Naruto and himself. He was furious with Naruto for being so much stronger than him. He was furious with himself for being so weak compared to Naruto. He wanted to be the strongest. Only when he was strongest would he be able to kill him. His Sharingan flashed. He wanted to copy all the techniques Naruto had to offer and leave him with nothing. Only he deserved to be the strongest, not him. Kakashi shook his head. Perhaps training Sasuke was a bad choice after all. Not surprising, considering the number of those type of choices he had made in his life. Sasuke looked like he would sooner kill Naruto and take his techniques for himself than call Naruto a friend and a comrade. Arena Naruto watched Gaara drop to all fours, no doubt the result of the barrier absorbing his chakra, which was now a dark shade of green. He dropped the barrier as soon as Gaara looked he would pass out. He ran forward, making sure not to use a flash step. Gaara was breathing heavily, trying not drop in exhaustion. This was the first time he had suffered something like this, and all because of that damn Uzumaki. Rage began to boil inside as mother began screaming in his head. Kill him, Gaara. Kill him. Give me his blood. I want his blood. Yes, mother, Gaara agreed before looking up to glare at Uzumaki. He was about to take mother's power when he was suddenly sent flying, landing in a heap. Naruto had punched him on the nose with enough force to break it, and watched with some satisfaction as Gaara was sent flying. He landed about 10 meters from Naruto, and Naruto feared that he had knocked the redhead out. But then Gaara stirred, causing Naruto to relax a bit. Gaara stood up on shaky legs, which Naruto took as a positive sign to initiate the last part of his plan. His fingertips on the right hand lit up in 5 purple, kanji characters. Kagebox Orochimaru's eyes widened in panic. He knows that as well? I can't let him put that seal on Gaara. He immediately gave his signal to start the invasion. Arena Naruto was about run and slammed the seal onto Gaara, making sure Shikaku didn't come out to play. Gaara felt something wet on his face. He wiped his hand and took a look at what it was. A scream so chilling erupted from his throat, and Naruto took that as his chance. If he was late, he would never be able to put it on Gaara again. Blood! My blood! Gaara screamed in pain. He had never seen his own blood before. He wasn't if he even had it. But he knew now, and it hurt so badly to see his blood. His mind snapped, and he only wanted to kill everyone and everything that hurt him, including Uzumaki Naruto. A roar that was not entirely his own came from him. Naruto was 5 feet from Gaara, fingers outstretched and ready to slap it on him, when sand erupted from Gaara, coming from God knows where, in the shape of a hand covered in purple lines, shooting towards him. Naruto flashed towards the farthest kunai, escaping from being grabbed by a hair's breadth. Shit! His danger sense rang, and he turned his head to the Kage box, where an explosion took place and suddenly, feathers were falling from above.